Hi there. I wanted to pop in to share a bit of the story of my healing journey with you. My mental health healing has been a long and complicated process, of course, as many of them are. In retrospect, perhaps it began with my earliest memories of my mom talking to me about how her shyness had always held her back in life. And at 3 years old, I committed to figuring out how to rise above my own shyness. Another pivotal time was when, in my early 20s, my husband at that time walked out, and I suddenly found myself the single mom of a special needs child and an infant. We were living in poverty at the time, and I had no family and no friends that we could lean on, that we could depend on and turn to. And I committed then to put my children first by putting myself first and striving always to live a life of balance. The earth-shattering moment came, though, when at 41, my mom disowned me. And here's where my story goes full circle. A healthy parent does not disown their child, period. There is simply nothing a child of any age could ever do to warrant such a withdrawal of love and acceptance. And just to be clear, I strove very hard to always be a good kid. My sin? I set a boundary with my mom for the first time in my life. I share this story because my story begins with hers, and her story begins with her mother's, which begins with her mother's. Ours is a perfect example of a generational trauma and the insidious nature of unhealed trauma. Naturally, unacknowledged wounds cannot be properly healed, and they cannot be helped to heal. Imagine a crushed bone mending as it will, without the assistance of surgery or a setting or a cast. And now imagine that rather than a bone, it's a crushed nervous system. Think fight, flight, freeze. When our autonomic nervous system perceives danger, certain processes are shut down, such as digestion and the capacity to think logically. And certain processes are turned on, such as adrenaline and cortisol production. Growing up in a household feeling unloved, unwanted, unaccepted is more than enough to trigger all of those chain reactions on a pretty continual basis. So jump ahead a few years, and a lifetime of stewing in all of those hormones that are only meant to be occasional and fleeting, it wreaks havoc on every single organ and system in your body. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Then there's the matter of epigenetics. Our bodies are amazing in their brilliance. At a cellular level, we seek to protect our progeny. When we are exposed to the same situations over and over, our DNA morphs to accommodate that, and that is what becomes passed on to set up future generations for success. Except that evolution did not plan for child abuse or neglect or any abuse and neglect, especially ongoing. My struggles are not my fault, and neither are yours. We struggle with the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual repercussions of trauma when things happen that overwhelm our autonomic nervous system. While there are many pathways to healing trauma, the one thing that they all have in common is connection. Trauma disconnects, and healing requires connection. My stunted attempts to heal rocketed to new levels when I found a group of people who get me. I never made sense to myself before, and really I made even less sense, others made even less sense to me. And so now that I have educated myself on trauma and I have surrounded myself with a community of others on their healing journey, I have found my voice. I have done my work, and I am living a life I had only dreamed of before. I still struggle at times because my journey's not over. But now I have healed many, many, many of those gaping, painful trauma wounds and have accrued tools and skills and confidence to continue healing. My imperative for you is twofold. First, accept that your struggles are not your fault and they are your responsibility. And two, find a community that hears you and sees you and supports you unconditionally.